Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Anastasia, and in this channel I usually speak about studies and careers in France. And in this video I would like to share with you some tips about passing the GMAT. I scored 730 and I've been teaching GMAT for a while here in Paris as well. So if you're interested in how to score high on the GMAT, follow this video. So your first step in your preparation is to understand where you are right now. What's your starting point? What's your current level of mathematics and of English? And if you really struggle with English and your level is, I'd say, below upper intermediate, you should probably postpone your GMAT preparation and start with working on your English. Anyway, for the business school, you will have to pass some English tests, IELTS or TOEFL. Maybe start with that one and then come back to the GMAT. To find out about your current level, you have to do a blank test. You can do it on mba.com official software, or you can find some shorter versions of exam online, or it can also be a diagnostic test in your textbook. We're going to talk about GMAT books and resources in a separate video. Second, once you're done with your diagnostic test, you should either book an exam date, or if that stresses you too much, set yourself a target deadline date where you would like to probably pass the GMAT for the first time. Let's say we're in May today and you want to plan the first rounds in September, October, so by beginning of September your GMAT should be done. So set yourself a date in the end of summer, for example. Also, if you do that, you also have later rounds of application, so you can repass GMAT later on. And that's what I would advise to do, because otherwise you're stressing too much and it's 700 from the first time or die, which is not the best way not to stress about it, right? There is no universal answer to the question, hey Anna, how much time will it take me to prepare for the GMAT? Well, among my students, I know examples between 1 week and a year, and it depends a lot on where you're starting from and on how much time you can dedicate to the GMAT every day and every week. But in general, on average, let's say if you work on it good several hours a week, almost every day, count between 1 and 3 months of preparation, from which comes our third point. Once you set a target date or a deadline or your real exam date, prepare a calendar, at least for the first few weeks. How do you do that? So you have to note down all the topics and sections that you have in the GMAT. Good news, there is a limited number of topics and there will be no surprise. So in verbal you have 3 sections, you probably already know them: sentence correction, reading comprehension, and critical reasoning. And in quantitative part you have about a dozen mathematical topics like algebra, geometry, probability, and so on. So note them all down and split your time of at least the first few weeks between these topics, and work on every topic, on every theory, so you get your basics ready. You can choose the scheme you like. You know, there's a lot of them. You can do 1 day verbal, 1 day quant, or 20 minutes working on a theory of one topic and then doing 20 minutes of mix of different questions, and so on. So just pick whatever you prefer and whatever works for you and your work schedule. Number 4, work on it regularly. It's better to do 15 minutes, but every day, almost every day, than to do 4 hours once a week with your teacher and then forget everything you've actually learned. GMAT is like sport. You have to train regularly. It's easier to say than to do, because most of us, while preparing for the GMAT, we also have a full-time job, and I'm aware of that. But please try to make your practice regular. Maybe more time on weekends, maybe less time during the week, maybe 15 minutes here, 1 hour there, but do not put it all on one weekend day, and practice regularly a lot.
Study hard and you will be rewarded. Fail to do so and the consequences may be severe.
Number 5, a very common mistake during preparation. While you're going to do your blank tests and you're going to track your progress, you will see that, like all of us, you have some strong points and some weak points, and you do some parts better and some you struggle more with. So the common mistake is to say, oh, okay, I already do great on verbal, so let's put it aside and put all my effort on quant. Do not do that, actually. Of course, you have to work on your weak points, but you also have to improve even further your strong advantages, because that's where you're probably going to have an exceptionally high score, and that's what's going to push your score out of 800 very far. So I'm going to tell you about two things in GMAT evaluation that most people do not know.
Where did you see this?
That's classified.
It's what?
It's classified. I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
First of all, answering a very difficult question on the GMAT pushes your score higher than answering right to an average question, because GMAT values the fact that you got the right answer to a very complicated question. That's why working on your strong side is important, because that's where you're going to get to like 95th, 99th percentile. Second point, exceptionally high scores in verbal are rare, and that's why a very, very high percentile in verbal will push your score further than the same high percentile in math. Why is that so? Because most of the candidates preparing for the GMAT are those who apply to business schools, and often they already have math or engineering degree, and they do not struggle at all with this high school math, but they do struggle with verbal. So that's why it's more rare, and that's why it's more valued by the GMAT, and that's actually what happened to me. I scored 99th percentile in verbal, and that's what drove my score far above 700. Number 6, which is probably the most important point that you have to keep in mind. You have probably already heard about it or read about it if you know something about the GMAT, but I'm still going to repeat it because I repeated it to all my students because it is crucially important. And that is that you absolutely have to do the exam on time. You have to finish before the timer is off. If the timer stops and you still have some questions unanswered, your score will drop really, really, really low, no matter how many great hard questions you've answered before. It's a management test, it's about setting the right priorities and time management. GMAT really tests not only mathematical theory, not only English, but logic and time management skills. So yeah, beware, it's very, very important. So most of GMAT life hacks and tricks, they are actually related to time management. And in the next video, we're going to discuss tips per section and per question type. Number 7. So you got this. You have to go really fast, but you obviously have to answer the questions right. So how do we balance that, the accuracy and the speed? How do we apply this to our preparation? Do we start rushing since the beginning, or do we work on the right answers first? So my approach that I apply to my own preparation and that I taught my students is that first you get the simple questions right. You work on your theory. You work through all the topics of the GMAT to make sure that you know all the basic formulas, all the theory, and you work through simple questions. We're going to talk again about this in the resources video. So you get your simple questions right. Then you start to go faster. You put a timer on and you make sure that you take no more than 2 minutes or even less on simple questions per question. Then once you think you've got it right, you get most of the theory right, you go to harder questions. You get a nice 800 math problems book and you work on harder and harder questions, and then you raise up the speed again, and then the difficulty, and then the speed again. And by the end of your preparation, in the very last weeks, you should put the timer all the time and track how much time it takes to answer every question. Number 8. Please do the real computer tests. It's not at all the same, to solve the exam on the computer and to solve problems on paper, to see the question in front of you in the textbook and to see it on the screen. No matter how great you are at solving problems at your practice at home, you should be aware of how the real exam looks like, because it's not at all the same. And even if you did great at home, but you did no practice tests, believe me, you're going to have a lower score on the real exam. So it's hard and it takes a lot of time, well, 3.5 hours at the very least. So you have to dedicate, I would say, half a day to it, a whole day, because you will not be able to practice anymore after. Ideally, a weekend, of course. Find a time when you're not going to be disturbed and put 3.5 hours into this. Because another skill that GMAT is testing is your capacity to be very, very concentrated during 3.5 hours looking at the screen and solving complicated problems.
See neither type of opera and neither type of film. Hey.
So please do that. Go on MBA.com, download GMAT Prep software, which is free. This is the only one that really corresponds to the real GMAT exam. Number 9, keep track of your errors. It's annoying, it's boring, and you don't want to do that, but please do. After every practice test, you go through all your answers, and you do not just go straight to the answer explanation, read it, and like, oh, okay, I got it, that's fine. No, you have to work through it. Note down the types of questions where you've made mistakes, and note why you made it. Is it because you don't know the theory enough? Is it because you forgot some formula or some way of solving problems? Or is it because you didn't pay attention to a detail, or you didn't understand the question, or you just went too far in your calculations and you just made a simple mistake? Because, you know, GMAT knows how you think and is expecting you to make mistakes and is putting a lot of traps in the answer choices. Keep track. And that's what's going to allow you to adjust your preparation calendar, to put some focus on one type of questions and less on the other. Track your progress also. Number 10, classes are not classes. So I've been teaching in a certified Kaplan center here in Paris, and I've been giving both individual and group classes. And I personally think that group classes are not very efficient unless your school makes a really big effort of separating people into different groups depending on their level. So of course individual lessons are far more efficient. Does everybody need individual classes? No. I would say there are 3 cases where you need the help of a private teacher on the GMAT. First is when you really struggle with math and you want someone to explain it to you in an easy way, and you need it to be a person and not a textbook. So during my practice, I found my own different ways of explaining some hard math stuff in simple words, so that might be working. Second case is when you struggle with one particular section or one particular question type and you just want to get some tips and tricks, and just a few hours with an advanced teacher may help. And the last case is when you've been already preparing for a while and you're doing quite well, but you just need to push that score 10, 20, 30 points further from, like, let's say 690 to a good 730, and you want to tackle the most complicated issues and problems of the GMAT, and that's when you can also go see someone. Otherwise, self-preparation is actually quite good. My last advice before we dive into different tricks and tips per section, please try to have fun, enjoy it. Consider it a game. Come on, it's so much fun and so much satisfaction that you get when you solve a complicated problem, or you find a new solution, or you struggle with something and then you get it. And then, for example, I was struggling with one of the topics in math. I don't know why. It was on work and rate problems, actually. I just didn't work for me, and so I was working a lot on that, and then I finally got it. And now when I see this problem in my classes, or when I saw it in my preparation, I was like, oh yeah, hey, work and rate, I know how to solve that. And you see your score progress, you see how you improve, and that's very rewarding. And it's just a game. You just need the highest score possible. You have all the different tools. The math is really high school basics, so do not worry about that. Put your best in it and try to have fun.